Today, we're talking with Yuval Rooz from Digital Assets. Now, Yuval, you guys are big into DLT and trying to disrupt that sector. Tell us more about your work in Australia with the exchange down there.
Yeah, so before we talk about Australia, I think that it's important to know what we do at Digital Assets.
Absolutely, yes.
Just to kind of give a bit of context. So we started in 2014 when the whole space started evolving. And what we focused on is building a blockchain and building a smart contract. But what we've started seeing throughout the years is that the industry is bifurcating. So if you want to build an application on Fabric, it's going to look one way. If it's going to be on Corda, it's going to look one way. Or if you're going to build it on Ethereum, it's going to look something completely different, even though the product itself can be the same product from a functional perspective. So what we've done is we've built a smart contract language that effectively abstracts away all of the complexity of blockchain and effectively allows the customers to really focus about the product that they're trying to build. And what we've done with that is we effectively contracted with the Australian Securities Exchange, which the project we're doing with them is effectively replacing all of clearing, settlement, sub-registry of Australian cash equities. So what does it mean in practice? In 2020, we're entering production testing where every security in Australia, every cash equity in Australia is actually going to be managed and tracked in real time on a blockchain. That is huge. Australia is a G10 country.
Well, that is massive. And you mentioned earlier about how your technology allows the user to define their workflow first and pick the technology later. Just like in the enterprise sector, you wouldn't decide whether you want to use Hadoop or Apache or AWS or Microsoft. You define your workflow first, right? So you make sure that companies don't have to define themselves against Ethereum or Hyperledger. Rather, they work with what's best for them.
Right. So, and again, if you know what we are seeing and what we want to create is the equivalent of what you're seeing in today's world with technology, which is you are a business, you identify an opportunity or an area to improve, you sit down with your business people, with your subject matter experts, with your product people, and you say to yourself, well, what are we doing to improve our business or create a new opportunity? What we are doing with our smart contract language, we're saying you could actually start working on it right away. And what we're going to give you is the certainty that once you wrote it with our smart contract, you'll be able to then deploy it on the right technology. So today, when you're building an application on a SQL database, you don't ask, the first question that you ask yourself is not, are we going to use Oracle, Postgres, IBM DB2? No, the first question that you ask yourself is, what is the product that we're going to build? So effectively, that's what we're trying to do at Digital Asset, is allow you to do that.
With blockchain, one barrier would be developers, right? They might say, I don't know blockchain. With your technology, you can work around that and say, look, your developers first, blockchain experts second.
Or blockchain experts not needed.
Even better.
So I think if you think about like on the front end space, like websites, today you don't even need to know what HTML is or what is CSS or a lot of these technologies. A lot of the companies abstracted that away from the users. We're trying to create the same experience. I mean, if you think about building an exchange or building a supply chain product on traditional technology, using Java, SQL database, all plain vanilla technology is complicated. So now you're going to introduce and say, let's build it in a distributed manner. Adding all that level of complexity is not expediting development, it's actually slowing it down. So in today's world, actually that is true. You need to have, if you're trying to build something on Fabric, you need to have an expert that understands the inner works of Fabric, so you'll be able to build a product that actually is safe, private, secured, and that is complicated. That's not easy. So if anything, you're hindering innovation because you're saying to your developer who needs to build an already complicated product, now you need to understand this additional level set of complexities. What we're saying is, no, we want you to understand that now you can design a distributed system. Our language is tailored for distributed systems. Just describe how the product behaves, who is allowed to do what under what scenarios, and we will take care of executing it on a blockchain without you needing even to know how it works.
So the big story, it seems like, is not about the Australian stock market. That's fantastic, by the way, but more about how you're disrupting the market for coding and enterprise development with your technology.
Yeah, so at Digital Asset, we're all about the developer experience.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so focused about the developer and how they experience developing applications. We're actually starting to see now developers that are building applications using our smart contract language for just traditional products. We have now 2 clients that have signed up that are developing just a fintech startup, nothing to do with blockchain, nothing to do with DLT, but just because they realize that by using our language, they can describe their business in a much more efficient and fast way. So we're very much interested in changing the paradigm of how you're doing software development. And we came from a distributed or blockchain background. We're very focused on allowing developers to develop blockchain applications more efficiently, but I think the story is much bigger than that.
So looking at your competitors in the market, who do you compete with? Is it a Neo? Is it an Ethereum? Or is it neither? More like an IBM or also an Accenture?
No, Accenture is a very good partner of ours. There's actually
great.
many Accenture developers that know how to use our language. We're actually working on a few opportunities together with them where they are actually using our language to build applications for the client. Who are our competitors? That's a good question. I think that there's not really an offering today that says, there are a few that are entering the space now that are saying you should create a smart contract language that is platform agnostic. I guess you can say that Solidity is a competitor to us, but Solidity is trying to solve a very specific problem, which is how do you build decentralized applications on top of Ethereum? Where we're actually prove that you can compile DAML down to Ethereum, but at the same time you can compile it down to Corda, or to Fabric, or to Sawtooth. So we're actually trying to give you a very uniform developer experience independent of what is the technology that you're using.
Well, I guess, with that comes the fact you aren't reliant on one blockchain. So Ethereum has their new version coming out soon, but it also has its controversies around it, right? There are people that aren't really, big fans of where they're going.
Listen, from my perspective, to me, it doesn't really matter if I agree or disagree with Ethereum. I still think that they are going to have success. And what we're trying to do is you're seeing a lot of innovation in the Ethereum platform, but I actually think that some of the tools that are being used are not mature for the amount of capital that they're actually putting at risk. So actually what we want to see is, how do you give developers that do want to innovate on the Ethereum platform the right tools for the task, right? So we're, like I said, we're very focused on developer experience and abstracting away some of these complexities. And we believe that actually by using DAML, even on Ethereum, you'll be able to innovate and reduce some of the risk associated with some of these, you would call it use cases, but some of these use cases put real capital at risk. And
so your comment about Ethereum's problem with maturity is actually quite interesting. So what do you see as the problem there? Like, what is lacking right now with that toolkit?
Listen, I think that Solidity, for example, is not a mature product. It's not a mature language. There's a lot of innovation happening in that space, but I think that from a language perspective, it's been proven that there's just so many vulnerabilities. For us, from day one, vulnerabilities, security analysis of the language, some of the static analysis tools that come with the language, some of the testing systems that come with the language. Again, we're just very focused on this one product, where in Ethereum there's just a lot. Joe was just on a panel with me, and he laid down a pretty ambitious vision, which is very exciting, right? But it requires a lot of things to work well together. So I actually think that we could actually help some of that ambitious program. But I think that right now a lot of these tools are very thin, and some of them are not, in my opinion, ready for prime time, especially not with some of the projects that they're trying to lift up.
Okay, so last question. We're here at Hong Kong FinTech Week. What are the big trends you're seeing on the show floor?
Well, so I think that the interesting thing, and that to me is a good thing, is that it's not all blockchain, but there is a lot of it. I think that AI. It's funny how people talk about regulation and blockchain, and it's going to disrupt, but there's still not a lot of conversation about regulation of AI.
Right.
But you're starting actually to see some of those conversations coming up. So it's a good mix between big data, AI, blockchain is still, and virtual assets are taking a lot of the attention. I mean, the keynote before us, it started talking about regulation that is coming to Hong Kong about virtual assets. That is a big deal, right? And I think is a good thing. I mentioned on the panel how everybody talks about blockchain, banking the unbanked. And so far, everything that you've seen, especially in ICOs and those kind of products, is how do we take advantage of the unbanked?
I mean, surely with blockchain, it evolved from once the Wild West, this libertarian Wild West, to now a product used by the Australian Stock Exchange or other companies of certain scale. That's a great thing, I assume, and great for you guys, which are really building up the maturity of blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think that there is still a good amount of noise of things that are not productive into this space.
Definitely.
And that are actually adding a lot of, so we're focused on the enterprise blockchain. Sometimes things in the public blockchains, ICO markets, because of lack of education, suddenly hinder some of the effort in the enterprise blockchain. And that's why I'm saying that seeing more regulation and more like really thinking about what are the products that you're going to launch, whether they are public blockchains or private blockchain, how are they affecting the users, really thinking about the risk, not trying to prevent innovation, but really also thinking about what is this innovation doing, what are the risks associated with it, is going to be a good thing for the space and is going to help actually innovation in the long run.
Great, well, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sam, thank you so much.